You give someone your best years, and one day you come home, and the lock doesn't turn. That's how fast it happens. Not with a slap, not with a fight, just silence. The porch light flickered above me like it couldn't decide whether to welcome me or warn me. I stood there holding a grocery bag that was tearing at the bottom and a key that no longer fit the door. Behind it, a man I married. And behind him, the woman now wearing my robe. He didn't even say my name. He just said, "You're not supposed to be here." It was late February. The kind of cold that seeps through wool and bone. Lancaster, Pennsylvania doesn't care if your life is falling apart, the slush still finds your shoes. I just walked back from Martin's Market. Milk-creamed corn, a bottle of wine I wasn't even sure we still liked. I'd been buying it out of habit. Habit, that's what most of our marriage was toward the end. I tried the lock again. Still nothing. The key turned, but the deadbolt held firm. Like the house had made up its mind before I had. The door opened a crack. Dennis filled the gap. No warmth in his eyes, no shame either. He looked past me when he said, "You can't stay here." I kept my voice low. "I live here." His lips twisted. "She does now." He stepped back enough for me to see silk robe, bare feet, glass of wine in her hand. Stacey, we'd had dinner with her once. She was a friend from the office, polite. Thin smiles, empty eyes. Now she was home. I asked about the ticket. Dennis shrugged. "You left it on the fridge. That was for us." He shook his head. "It's mine now." No hesitation. Not even guilt. "I packed your suitcase," he said like he was doing me a favor. It was sitting on the front steps upright like luggage outside a hotel. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I picked up the suitcase with one hand, the grocery bag with the other. Walked down the sidewalk. Didn't look back until I heard the door click shut. Then the bag tore. Creamed corn rolled into the street. A bruised apple followed. I didn't chase them. At the corner, I looked up one last time. There she was. In my kitchen. Wearing my robe, drinking my wine. I reached into my coat pocket. Pulled out the receipt from Martin's, slipped it in beside the folded photo. The one with the numbers. The winning numbers. And my name at the bottom. They thought they'd replaced me. But the thing about curtains, I never wanted new ones. I just wanted to see clearly. It cost me $2. That and a smile from Victor behind the scratched plexiglass. He always smiled when he saw me. Said I reminded him of his aunt in North Carolina. I'd take that over being invisible any day. The weather was cruel that Monday, gray, biting wind, everything salted but still slick. I'd stopped at Gas and Go for two things, pot roast and green beans. I walked out with those. And a little white slip with numbers. Just one ticket, one chance. Victor said, "Feeling lucky today, Miss Ruth," and I said, "Not really. But maybe I'm due." He smiled again, handed it over. I tucked it in the side pocket of my purse next to my lip balm. Forgot about it almost immediately. Back home, I moved around the kitchen in silence. That's how it usually was. Dennis worked from his home office, a room he kept locked. Said it helped him think. Lately he'd been thinking a lot. The fridge was cluttered with receipts, appointment cards, expired coupons. I cleared a tiny space and pinned the ticket with a yellow smiley face magnet I'd bought at a PTA fundraiser 10 years ago. "I signed this one," I called down the hall. Happy Dennis grunted. "Not really, but sure." He didn't ask how my day was. Didn't notice the limp in my left foot from slipping on our icy driveway. He just walked past me, poured himself a glass of something dark, and went back behind the locked door. That night I cooked meat, canned green beans, instant mashed potatoes. Comfort food. Cheap and easy. He came to the table late, Saturday down, ate in silence. Didn't even compliment the roast, and Dennis always complimented the roast. Just before he stood to leave, he mumbled something. "Stacey's helping me go through some things, financial stuff." He said it like a footnote. Like I wouldn't notice the way she had started leaving a wine glass on the counter after her visits. Like I wouldn't feel the temperature in our house shifting one quiet day at a time. I did. And I didn't say a word. Because sometimes silence is the only place left to stand. The next morning the house smelled like nothing. Not coffee. Not toast. Just cold. I moved through the kitchen on autopilot, same as always, check the mail pile, rinse a plate, pet the cat that no longer lived here. Then I reached for the fridge. My eyes went straight to the spot where the ticket had been. The smiley face magnet still clung there crooked, but the ticket was gone. Not folded. Not stuck behind another paper. Gone. I didn't panic. Not right away. I opened the junk drawer. Checked behind the spice rack. Even checked the trash. Nothing. I didn't scream. I didn't run upstairs to demand answers. I just stood there, hands resting on the countertop, and let the silence fill me like concrete. Dennis came in from the garage half an hour later. Still in pajama, pants, teeth unbrushed, holding his phone like it was an oxygen tank. He didn't look up when he spoke. Don't forget Stacey's stopping by later, like she was family. Like it was normal for her to just show up. I didn't reply. Just nodded the way you do when the person talking to you has already replaced you in their head. Then I put on my coat, the one with the missing button and the torn pocket. Didn't fix my hair. Didn't grab my gloves. Just walked. My feet took me where my heart knew to go, the elementary school where I'd taught for 18 years. It was recess when I arrived. Children spilled out like confetti, laughing, bundled, racing each other to nowhere. I stood across the street, hands buried, deep breath showing in clouds. I watched a little girl in red boots fall and bounce up smiling. Watched a boy give away his last cookie. Watched a teacher kneel to tie a kindergartner's shoe with the kind of tenderness the world forgets to give adults. And I thought, at what point do we stop mattering? At what moment does someone look at you and decide quietly, casually, you're no longer worth kindness? I didn't cry, didn't plot. Just watched. And deep inside the wool-lined pocket of my old coat, my fingers found something small and crinkled. I held it like it was made of glass. The photo. A tiny folded printout from the gas station. Victor had handed it to me with the ticket. Just for fun, he'd said. In case you forget your numbers. I hadn't forgotten. And now neither would Dennis. They didn't steal the house. They stole the version of me that believed I still lived there. I sat on the edge of a motel bed that smelled like cigarette spray and bleach. The comforter was stiff. I didn't pull it down. I just sat elbows on knees watching the television flicker through other people's lives, news anchors, game show smiles, and a shampoo ad where everyone had a reason to laugh. On the particle board nightstand, a paper plate held half a square of casserole I'd made 2 nights ago. Still tasted like home. Still held its shape. I didn't. My phone buzzed again. Then again. I didn't want to check, but I did. It was her. Stacey had posted another photo. The caption read, "We won, manifesting magic. Thank you, universe." The photo showed her in the kitchen I used to clean, barefoot and smug, holding up a champagne glass in front of my old wall clock. The comments poured in. "So happy for you too, you deserve it, girl. Wait, was this your surprise you hinted at?" Not a single comment mentioned me. Not even from people I thought were mutual friends. Dennis was in the background holding a bottle. The one I bought him last Christmas. My name was gone. My story had been deleted from the party. I set the phone down face down, then I picked it back up. This time I didn't scroll. I took screenshots. Every post, every comment, every timestamp. I created a folder on my drive and labeled it Receipts. Old grocery receipts, 2 dates, items, store addresses. I scanned the photo of the lottery ticket. The one with my handwriting. My name. The one I took before I pinned it to the fridge thinking, this'll probably be trash next week. Turns out it wasn't. There was a knock at the motel door. Not someone. Just the sound of a maintenance cart passing. I waited for it to pass before I let myself breathe. My phone buzzed again, this time a text. "Diana, Ruth, I saw the news. Please tell me it's not what it looks like. Call me." I didn't answer. Diana had been a good friend. She had been there through the miscarriage, through Mom's funeral, through the year Dennis forgot our anniversary. But I couldn't explain this. Not yet. Not like this. Instead, I clicked into another message. A referral. A name. Marla Chen. Esquire. She doesn't talk much, but she wins a lot. That's what the old colleague said. I sat there, holding my breath. Typed the number into my contacts. Took a breath. Called. No answer. Voicemail. I swallowed and spoke, voice steadier than I expected. Hi. My name is Ruth Lawson. I need help. It's about a lottery ticket. I think my ex-husband took it. I signed it. I always do. I just need to know what comes next. I hung up. Outside, the parking lot lights flickered on. A kid zipped by on a scooter, his dad yelling for him to slow down. Inside, the hum of the fridge was the only sound. I walked over to the small closet, opened my suitcase. There it was, folded neatly on top my old robe. The one she wore in the kitchen. I held it in my hands. Smelled like lavender and lemon detergent. Not mine. Not hers either. The motel's. I folded it tighter. Pressed the edges down. Pulled out a plastic donation bag from the side of the suitcase. Slid the robe in. Not because I was done, but because she didn't get to have even one more thread of me. That night, as I brushed my teeth with a travel-sized tube and spit into a sink that didn't belong to me, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A low voice said, "First question, did you sign it?" I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said. I always do. The screen was fuzzy. The colors bled around the edges. But there I was. Beige coat. Knit hat. Pen in hand. Standing at counter 3 next to a display of gum that hadn't moved in 10 years. Victor sat beside me, eyes narrowed behind scratched bifocals. He reached toward the grainy monitor like he could sharpen it by sheer will. "That's you all right," he said, voice soft like it surprised even him. The 16th of January. 6:42 p.m. I watched the footage like a stranger might watch a dream. There I was, pulling the ticket from the register. Smiling. There I was, reaching into my purse, not for money but for a pen. The same black one with a chewed-up cap I always carried. There I was, signing the back. I pressed pause. The moment froze, my hand steady, my name clear, the camera angle just right. Victor let out a breath. "You always did things by the book, Ruth." I didn't look away from the screen. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. Then another. Then I turned on video and asked as evenly as I could, "May I record a short clip?" Victor hesitated. For a moment I thought he might say no. But then he nodded. "It's your signature. Your moment. I'd say you earned it." I whispered, "Thank you." Not because I had to, but because gratitude still mattered to me even now. We let the footage roll 10 more seconds just to be safe. Then I closed my phone and tucked it against my chest like something holy. Outside, the snow had turned to gray slush. People passed in parkas and boots, heads down, lives moving. I stepped outside, leaned against the wall beside the ice machine. The cold didn't sting as much today. I called Marla. She answered on the second ring. "It's me," I said. "We've got it." No small talk. No build-up. Just the truth. There was a pause, then her voice low-level, utterly confident. "That video, your signed copy, and your receipts. That's enough. I'm submitting the claim today." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "Do you need anything else from me?" she replied. "Only patience. That, and to keep breathing. This part might take time, but the system does bend when it has no other choice." I whispered a thank you again. This one heavier, then I hung up. I didn't cry, didn't cheer. I just stood there and let myself exhale a full breath that didn't hitch, didn't tremble. For the first time in weeks, my lungs moved without shivering. Back at the motel, I walked in and placed my phone on the little counter by the sink. Opened the mini fridge for water. And there, stuck to the metal, a smiley face magnet almost identical to the one that used to sit on our fridge back home. I stared at it for a long time. Because sometimes it's the smallest things that remind you you haven't disappeared. Not yet. Not ever. The day she posted a boomerang of her toes in a spa chair, sparkly pink polish flute of champagne in hand, was the day her world quietly stopped spinning. I didn't have to search for it. It popped up on my phone like the universe had RSVP'd. Investing in new beginnings, Anno, she wrote. The caption was smug. The kind that smiled with its teeth but not its eyes. 2 hours later, her account vanished. Marla had warned me. Once the claim is filed and verified, the state moves quickly. No courtroom drama. No headlines. Just silence. She was right. That morning I received an email confirmation. All related accounts frozen. Pending full investigation. No fanfare. Just a line of black text on a white screen. I read it once. Then again. Then I shut the laptop and poured myself some motel coffee. Burnt as usual. Later, I checked the news. Nothing. But under a Facebook post about Lancaster's new library opening, someone had commented, "Y'all better hope your money's clean." No names. But I knew. I imagined Stacey scrolling, swiping, smiling for the camera, then trying to pay for lunch and watching the card reader blink red. I imagined Dennis at the ATM, shoulders tightening as the machine spat out a message he couldn't argue with. Insufficient permissions. Please contact branch. I didn't laugh, didn't toast, didn't even forward the email. Instead, I walked 2 blocks in the wind and bought myself a muffin. Blueberry. Still warm. I ate it slowly by the lake. The same bench where Dennis once told me, "No matter what happens, I got you." Turns out I got me. Marla's office was warmer than I remembered. Quiet. No art on the walls, just file cabinets and a clock that ticked with soft defiance. She handed me a pen and 2 copies of an affidavit. Her voice didn't rise, didn't dip, just steady. "You'll sign here, and here. Initial that box." I did. She slid a folder across the desk. "Copy for your records. We don't expect pushback. But if they try," she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. In her silence there was weight. Confidence. The kind of woman who didn't need to gloat because she'd already won. We didn't talk about Dennis. Or Stacey. Or the house I hadn't stepped foot in for 32 days. She stood, smoothed her sleeve. "We expect full transfer of winnings in 3 to 5 business days." I nodded. It sounded like a sentence from a bank brochure. But it hit like a bell in my chest. On the way out, I didn't stop by the waiting room. Didn't linger on the floral print they'd hung crooked in the hallway. I just walked. That evening, I found myself standing on the sidewalk of a street I used to claim. My old house sat quietly under a porch light that buzzed like it might burn out any minute. No cars in the driveway. No voices behind the windows. And no lights on. I stood there not as a wife. Not as a victim. But as someone who had finally stopped asking for permission to exist. The bricks looked smaller now. So did the porch. And the place where the hydrangeas used to bloom every June gone. Pulled out like they never mattered. I didn't go closer, didn't reach for the gate. I just watched. Then turned. And as I walked away toward the motel, toward the lake, toward whatever came next, I realized something. Losing the house wasn't the loss. Believing it had ever been mine without my name on the deed, that was the real illusion. Some things, it turns out, are only stolen if you don't take them back. The silence after she screamed was louder than anything I'd heard in months. It came through the phone like static, broken, breathless, boiling. I didn't speak. Just held the phone an inch from my ear and let her finish unraveling. "You ungrateful, you think you deserve it. You ruined us, Ruth. You ruined everything." I stood by the window of my new place. The sun was dipping behind the trees, casting long lines across the floorboards I now swept every morning. There was a soft breeze coming in March, still cold but gentler than February. She kept going. "I never took anything from you," she cried, voice cracking now, not with rage, but with something that sounded like realization. I let her words hang like laundry on a forgotten line. And then I said it. Quietly. Like an old note remembered by heart. Number. You didn't take one thing. You took everything around me. She fell silent again. Then came one final jab. You know what? You didn't even know what you had. I almost smiled. Not because she was wrong, but because this time I knew exactly what I had and what I had let go. You never even flipped the ticket over, I said, my voice level, my heart still. Then I pressed end call. I set the phone down on the counter and turned back to the small vase waiting on the table. Baby's breath, simple, white, soft. They used to be fillers in bouquets Dennis bought when he'd done something wrong. Now they stood alone. And they looked just right. The email had come that morning. A quiet PDF with official seals and one firm line. This letter confirms reassignment of winnings to Miss Ruth Halperin, legal owner and claimant. No press, no article. No photos of me holding an oversized check in front of balloons. That's how I wanted it. Marla called soon after. This closes the file, she said. Unless you want to pursue damages. I said no. Some things weren't worth chasing. Some endings only felt clean when you left parts untouched. I walked through my new kitchen, modest, bright, exactly mine. The fridge hummed gently in the background, bare except for one small magnet. The smiley face. I took it from my coat pocket and pinned it to the top corner. Held beneath it one folded receipt, and below that a scanned copy of the ticket, my name, in blue ink. No fireworks, no need. That night I left the front door open. Just the screen door clicked shut, letting the air move through the house. Not for company. Not for ghosts. Just for me. A text came through while I brewed tea. Diana, I heard. Proud of you. Me, thanks. Let's get coffee sometime. I meant it. Sometimes the world doesn't cheer when you win. Sometimes it doesn't even notice. But you do. And sometimes that's enough. I never raised my voice. I never showed up with lawyers or cameras. But that name in blue ink, my name, meant I hadn't disappeared. Sometimes the quietest victories come not from fighting louder, but from knowing who you are when no one else is looking. And in this life, dignity doesn't always make headlines, but it holds the door open when the storm passes. If this story stirred something in you, tell me, have you ever had to reclaim something that was already yours? I'd love to hear what strength looked like in your life. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, if someone ever told you what belonged to you is theirs now, then maybe this story felt familiar. You're not alone. We tell these stories not to dwell in pain, but to remind ourselves that truth, no matter how quietly it walks, always arrives. You don't need to shout to be seen. Sometimes all it takes is one signature. One moment you didn't give up on yourself. If Ruth's journey reminded you of a chapter in your own life, I hope you'll share it in the comments. There's someone else reading today who might need your voice. And if you've been holding back, staying quiet, this might be your sign to speak with grace, with clarity, with your name signed at the bottom. Follow us for more real stories that speak from the heart. Stories about betrayal, justice, and quiet courage. We're building a space for people like Ruth, people like you. Because sometimes healing begins when someone else says me too.